Hello and welcome, Mikolku speaking, and this is episode 32. Has been again a little while, but yeah, we are back. And today I would like to discuss things that we tend to skip when it comes to concept design and concept art. Things that are not maybe as obvious, but are definitely extremely important. I myself found this out the hard way. And I think a lot of concept artists can relate to that, which are already working several years in the industry, including also Darek Zabrodsky, where we run the school together with. And for the benefit and in the interest of providing some certain tips and knowledge points for everyone, not only our students, we would like to cover here certain things that might help you increase and boost the skill of your journey, right? So again, only a small fraction of people are aware of it, and I think that fraction is even smaller when it comes to people that are just starting out with concept design and illustration, right? As we move forward in this ever-demanding industry, it becomes extremely important that we strive to get better and better. No longer is it so feasible to be just an average concept artist. We need to do better all the time. The moment you think you're good enough is the moment you start stagnating. So again, here we go. I would like to cover the following points. I have like 5 of them. And on the background, by the way, you see a recording from the advanced digital painting class, so that there is a little bit, so that you know what the context is a little bit. So as I will go through the points, there is something running on the background. So it's not strictly always connected to what you see happening on the screen. But I guess, you know, it's nice to have something running on the back. It is a live study, not actual live study. It's a study from Google Maps. So that's one of our points that I will go over. And this was done during one of the terms, I think last year, around week 4, week 5. It was done live in front of the students. Here it is slightly sped up to have it done in a nice brief way. Also, I did not start here from scratch in this one. So I already had like the main colors and values laid down, because that was done live in front of the class. And then I recorded the rest of it for our students. Let's start with the first point of what is often overlooked, right? The first thing is to always use reference. Might be a very obvious one, but I really see it over and over again. People tend to really be too eager and very enthusiastic about any theme that they like to cover, right? And so they jump too quickly into the given topic which they try to depict or design or illustrate. And therefore, sometimes, you know, they do not spend enough time collecting their references. I for one, think that I notice it from myself, that the more time I spend in order to make a nice mood board for myself for a particular piece or design, the better usually my outcome is. So don't ever overestimate the importance for reference. Now, reference alone, how to use them and how to apply it, there is another focal point video on that topic. And we also, furthermore, we have an extended lecture on it as well at school, how to use it on a super top tier level in order to really spike and increase and boost your skill level. However, here I would like to briefly tell you all, guys, that just use a reference for even the most simple sketch or thing that you're trying to depict. You might know from your mind, for example, you know, how a bucket looks like, you know, a random object. And you might be able to faithfully represent and visually communicate a bucket if someone would randomly ask you, right? You would be able to draw it in a nice perspective with the handle. You would be able to render it out with its material, right? Is it from plastic? Is it maybe a wooden or iron bucket? But I guarantee you that if you have an image of a certain bucket or even a real bucket in front of you, which is even better, your results will be just much better because you are able to connect reality with your own reinterpretation of reality, which again is another topic. So, briefly said, use reference. It really enriches the mind and religion and really depicts and fortifies your output as an artist and designer. Second point I would like to cover again is start simple. We have also a rundown, quick art talk time on that topic in an advanced way, where we draw the Kubelwagen, the German scout car kind of vehicle from the Second World War. We start simple and break down the shapes on a very simple and comprehensible manner so that it will get through our brain faster and more efficient. Actually, we tend to perceive reality sometimes in an overwhelming way, right? Like, for example, this landscape. You might get overwhelmed with the amount of detail. What I mean by that is that you see a lot of certain particular flowers. You can see almost each and every piece of foliage sticking out, like the leaves and the little flowers in the foreground. Yet when I want to depict an idea fast and effectively for my client, or if I want to just, set the tone and the mood for a certain image, then what we often can really experience is that those little small details really are not responsible for setting the tone and mood. So in this painting here, we are already also extensively covering what are the defining factors of selling a certain mood, which here is briefly put the color, the value, and the compositional shapes. I am starting off always easy and very simplified. What I'm doing is I'm filtering out the complex objects and shapes and try to find an average simplified shape out of them. All right? I hope that it makes sense. We have limited amount of time. I'm trying to keep this under 30 minutes. Let's go to the next one. Extensive use of resources. I think I'll spend the most time on this point today with you guys, as I think it has been overlooked over and over again. Hence, I found the need to share it with all of you. Often when we give the task as a homework, we of course give a certain amount of resources for the students to work with. And what I mean by that is there is a certain task, and then we might provide additional content to help them start with the task. So for example, they need to make a study of a certain vehicle or a certain structure, right? Let's say that you joined the intro to environment class and you are making a study of a certain building. Darek then might provide you with certain reference images, maybe additional resources. What we often find is that students then often just limit themselves to the provided resources, and as if they take for granted that the whole world is actually open for them, right? They can really also do their own research and really start using every single tool that is at their disposal, especially in our day and age. And this also connects us to the task that you're seeing when it comes to this recording, right? You're seeing a landscape painting taking place, and instead of just relying on photos on the internet, and because I cannot travel in real life to every single particular place on this planet, I'm using technology to kind of fill in that gap and find the best way possible. So what I do is I went on Google Maps. I picked kind of like a nice spot on our planet where I think the landscapes will be nice and epic. This here, I think, was North America, somewhere in Canada, maybe Greenland. I'm not quite sure. But what I'm doing is that by doing that as well, I'm fully immersed. It's not just a random photo or a random piece of environment somewhere plucked from the internet, right? So the benefit is here that I, scroll through our planet on Google Maps. I pop myself in a region that I am interested in. And there are plenty of people that contribute to Google Maps, and they make like these 360 photos. And by rotating the camera around, I can find a feasible composition for myself to study from. This way I ensure that, the composition is kind of like, mine, because it's a 360 photo. And on top of that, most of the photos on Google Maps are raw. And what I mean by that is that they are not filtered or post-processed. And when you're studying, I think this is very important, because you're ensuring that you're working with close to reality colors and camera exposures, right? Of course, certain cameras might have different exposures to others, but there are so many pieces and images on the internet which are just, oversaturated or desaturated. So it might feed you the wrong perception of reality, right? So this is why we did this method. And this is only just one example, right? By really using the resources that are at your disposal. Another example would be when we were studying a certain artist, Sid Mead, a very iconic, legendary concept artist. And what we did in that example is that we wanted to make a master study out of one of his works. Now, Sid Mead is sometimes working with very kind of custom lighting settings. The light sometimes in his scenes that he is depicting does not give sometimes a very natural feel, right? He uses these kind of artificial colorings as if it is, from a very kind of like city being casted from a neon light or something, right? So you sometimes have like this very oversaturated ambient light that like runs across the whole image. And so when you're trying to recreate that, you might feel a little bit confused. So there has been this situation where I gave the advice to the student to, hey, think, think wider and widen your horizons when it comes to gaining the necessary resources to aid your workflow. So I suggested to very quickly rebuild the given scene in Blender, right? So just place a couple of lights which represent the lighting of that scene. Just a very basic block out, right? It's 15 to 20 minutes of work, so that you have a solid base which will help you to understand the lighting scenario, right? And the best example, I think, would be that you are, exposed to the real world, right? Nowadays, we artists, concept artists, illustrators, we tend to get, locked onto the screen for too many hours, right? Due to work. And let's be honest, a lot of us are also, slightly maybe addicted to the phone by scrolling too much. I really recommend that you stay connected to our real world, because in that way, you are constantly developing your visual library. And by being able to develop that, you are becoming more aware of our real world. And when you are aware of our real world, then you are able to provide better ideas. Because in the end, concept art, good concept art, comes from an artist which he or she is very aware and conscious about our current reality. For example, if you're designing a character like some kind of fantasy elf, the more you know about anatomy, the more you know about costumes and how they were crafted during a certain time era, like the 14th, 15th century, the better you'll be able to make a design which feels rich and believable. So as you can see, it all interconnects. It's just not like, oh, I'm going to sit down and draw orc with a huge sword. All right, let's go through the list what we need to know. What's the backstory of this orc? What kind of gear are they able to craft? What kind of sword? What kind of metals? The more you ask yourselves these questions, the more you force yourself to come up with a richer and believable solution. Then this is how, by asking yourself questions again, you are coming up with a better creative solution, so that your orc with a giant sword will have something unique to it, right? Because let's be honest, this was a very cliche example. There are plenty of orcs and there are plenty of characters like that. right? So, yeah. The following point is kind of connected to doing extensive resources, and that would be local thinking versus global thinking. Now, we have been covering that in the last term, how to kind of forge a mindset so that you as a concept designer in the industry will have an easier time when it comes to tackle all kinds of themes. And I think nowadays it is becoming more important to be able to tackle multiple themes and multiple styles, being versatile. The reasons for that is, well, I don't want to run out of time, but as we move forward in our industry, I think specialization is cool and nice, and I think people like that will be definitely needed, and I respect them profoundly, to a huge extent. However, we are, I think, developing to such a degree that, as a concept artist, for example, it's not enough to just draw extremely well and then use that as your tool to communicate your ideas, right? It is still, of course, important, and I think drawing fuels all the other skills, like being able to photo bash, being able to at least manipulate objects in 3D and light them up. I'm not saying maybe super detailed models, although that is another addition and plus if you're able to do it. So you can see that there are additional skills being connected to that main skill, which will allow you to stand out. And that's one of the reasons why our school exists. When I mean exactly by global versus local thinking, so how most people do, and this is again why a fraction of people are aware of this, when a certain task is given, let's say that you are designing a mech, right? A mech, and it has like some miniguns and grenade launchers, like a solid bipedal combat mech for some kind of sci-fi setting, right? I'm just, again, a cliche example, but it will serve its purpose. So most people, right, when they're giving such a task, they will think locally. And what I mean by that they will stay kind of connected only to the given topic. So when they are gathering references and when they are going to do research, then they will kind of work like a horse with horse blinders and only look at other mechs. Maybe they will look at, other vehicles of the same type which use similar technology, all right? Global thinking, however, constitutes that you are able to kind of think outside of the box. Is that the same? Yeah, kind of, right? You're able to think about, you're able to think beyond, outside of the box, I mean, because you are, as a creative, you will not only look at other mechs to design your own mech, but you'll be aware that, well, the mechanics on a mech can be the same mechanics as on a car. And so you are widening the scope of resources and references that you can gather, right? And so this is, I think, a solid example. Often we overlook and we take for granted that sometimes the most simple objects, quote unquote, can provide a huge amount of references, right? Probably when you are designing a mech, you will not look at your own Toyota Corolla, for example. But I do guarantee you, if you would start taking a Toyota Corolla apart, then you will come across, certain gears, equipment, and mechanics that you didn't think of. In the end, cars are a beautiful piece of engineering, and through their aesthetics, they developed in such a way that most of their mechanics are hidden away, right? We see cars every day that pass us by. They're like in huge numbers parked, so most of us see cars every day, but not everyone sees cars as a concept artist should. We have literally car parts laying here on our reference table here in class. And when students come in and I ask them the questions, do you know where this belongs to? And they have no idea, right? They don't have the awareness yet built up to know that these pieces belong to a car. And again, global thinking and doing your research and really widening the scope of sucking in all the knowledge around you will allow you to think more globally. right? Also, when it comes to the intent, which is also extremely important, every time you sit down to depict something and visually solve a problem, you need to know the intention of why you're sitting down. You are providing an idea, and an idea for our entertainment industry most of the time needs to trigger a certain emotion, right? A vehicle needs to look cool, needs to look badass. A structure or a castle in a certain environment, well, how are we going to depict it? Is it going to be in a misty, gloomy environment, or are we going to have, a beautiful palace with white walls and beautiful weather, right? These things spike different emotions. And so when you are aware of what kind of emotion you're striving for, you will be able to connect it with other things that, spiking maybe a similar emotion. Let's say that you find crabs a little bit repulsive and spiky and dangerous looking. They also have this protected, armored look. So what if you thought of a crab when you are designing a bipedal mech, right? You can definitely extract certain form language of that same emotional aspect from that crab and infuse that in your own design, right? This is another example of global thinking. Normally you would not probably think of a crab or another animal when you're designing a mech, but an emotion is an emotion, and different objects that are unrelated to one another can still trigger a same emotional response. We go extensively on that during our classes as well, and being aware of that will inevitably put you forward. So yeah, this is what I mean, briefly put, local thinking versus global thinking. Which leads me kind of logically to the skill of observation, all right? So what I mean by that is that we tend to think that we are observing maybe reality around us, right? To kind of enrich our visual library. That's another topic that we might talk about. However, what I mean by observation skills is that you actively are watching and trying to understand a certain scenario at hand, right? Observation is maybe not mindlessly walking around seeing cool things and taking photographs of it, for your reference folder. Although I think it is a very good way to collect your own reference, which is extremely important. Observation skills comes down to, well, let's give an example. I think that will be the best. Let's say that I'm making a design and I'm making a chrome kind of sci-fi ship, and its material is very chrome, very shiny, almost reflecting like a mirror, and it has rounded shapes. And so in real life it is very hard to find another chrome ship because I am the designer and I should be responsible for depicting that idea in a fresh manner, right? It would defeat the purpose if I would find another chrome ship from another artist, right? It is cool to look at it, to kind of like see what the benchmark is in industry perhaps, but still I want to make that design through my own interpretation. So again, the first kind of thing that comes to mind is looking at, other vehicles that are chrome, like World War II airplanes. But when you want to really understand the lighting on chrome materials, you can also, for example, take, a can, like a Red Bull can, which we also study, by the way. And the Red Bull can has a portion that is blue and portion that is neutral. And the neutral portion is kind of like, just chrome neutral color, like almost a mirror. And it really nicely reflects the environment on it. And when I have this object in my hand and I start rotating it in a certain lighting scenario, like outside or inside, then I can study and observe how lighting reacts on it, depending how I'm rotating the can. Now this might sound a little bit crazy, but these are the things and the little tips and the kind of little knowledge points that will set you forth as a concept artist. Because When you're in the store, even in the supermarket, there is tons of references, right? The glass of the fridge that is keeping the meat fresh and all the vegetables fresh, even that can provide good reference on how reflection works, how translucent materials work, and how you can feel more free when you understand it when it comes to depicting themselves on your own, right? People tend to just jump in 3D, right? And just like give this material, this setting, da 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 da, and you know you're cool. Yes, you're cool, but you'll be even cooler if you also understand how materials work. Then of course let the renderer do it for you. But when you have a strong comprehension, then you are in the end in control or what to exaggerate, what to omit, what to skip, right? So again, don't overlook this point and always use your observation skill to the fullest extent. I could talk on and on this point because that was just one example, but I hope it makes the point clear, right? And to sum it up, these are, I would say, the 5 points that I wanted to talk about today, right? If you enjoyed this, leave a like, subscribe, maybe comment on what you want to see next. We are experimenting with shorter formats, longer formats. Let me know what you are also into, right? And maybe there are some questions regarding the school, regarding our classes, or just, general industry, concept art and illustration tips that you are curious about, right? So, without, further extension of this, I would like to thank you for watching, for listening. I hope that you enjoy it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. And bye.